in many cases is just to tighten up the quota ranges that we've had in the past. Sometimes we'll have a situation where we're looking at lower populations, and one year we may bump the quota ranges down a bit, and then the next biennium will come back and the quotas will be going up, and so we'll bump up the upper end. And what we tried to do this year was take a look at a number of them and see if we could tighten those ranges down and get them a little bit more close to what we expect the oscillations to be in the next couple of years. And so primarily what you're looking at in most of these changes is trying to adjust permits, either trying to keep the ranges more tight. In some cases, we're eliminating second opportunities. And in one instance, we're looking to possibly add that. And so that's kind of a real quick general overview. I do know there is one proposed amendment, and we can certainly try to address that as in.
So as with the other one, what I'd like is an original motion, and then we will work with the amendments from there.
Madam Chair, I move the Fish and Wildlife Commission vote to approve changes identified in the antelope regulation mock-up to include opportunities, seasons, dates, quotas, and quota ranges as presented by the department, and all other antelope regulations contained in the 23 regulations except for those affected by regular calendar rotations unless addressed in some other proposal to be adopted for the 24-25 antelope hunting seasons and districts.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Lane. Okay, Commissioner Lane, would you like to present your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to kind of give some background. I apologize to the public that there was no rationale or background given on this. And so this originally came up actually over a year ago. It was brought up to my attention from those landowners and livestock owners, as well as sportsmen north of the river in Region 7, that they weren't seeing the amount of antelope that they are used to seeing. And also the concern from hunters that in the southern half that we're seeing way too many antelope hunters. And that's where the right now we're seeing the majority of the antelope is down in the southeast corner of Region 7. And with Region 7 being a 35,000 square mile, that is the size of the antelope district in Region 7. So why I brought this proposal forward is to help to manage basically two separate districts closer to allow for population changes, density in those areas, as well as help spread out the hunter concentrations. And so with that, I would move the Fish and Wildlife Commission adopt rules that split the current hunting district 007-20 into two separate north and south districts using Yellowstone River as a boundary between the two.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Lane and seconded by Commissioner Tabor. I will let Brian, if you want to speak to that, please.
Thank you, Madam. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair, and Commissioner Lane. The proposed change is largely social. It may essentially what it will do is limit hunters from seeking the place where the most abundant wildlife may be. On the other hand, if you are one of the hunters that have discovered where the most abundant wildlife are, sometimes when someone else finds it, it's not nearly as rewarding. So this does have the effect of managing hunter numbers, but it will limit their flexibility. And to some degree, perhaps also some landowners that may use those hunters. However, biologically, we don't anticipate any adverse effects. However, we would recommend, essentially what we're discussing is splitting Region 7 into a north and south rather than just the 720. because they're both doe fawn. There's additional licenses. And so the final paragraph in our response says that if adopted, the department would recommend a quota of 3,000 for either sex antelope with a quota range of 1,000 to 4,000 and a quota of 60 for doe fawn licenses with a quota range of 25 to 3,000 in the northern and a quota of 4,250 either sex antelope with a quota range of 2,000 to 8,000 and a quota of 80 for doe fawn licenses with a quota range of 25 to 5,000 in the southern portion. Successful applicants for either sex license in the southern portion may be offered the opportunity to purchase one doe fawn $799.30 with a quota range of 1,500, a range of 50 to 4,000 in the southern portion, valid in HD 705 during the same time period. So that's kind of trying to manage all those loose ends that kind of get incorporated with a split.
So if, would that entire, paragraph need to be added? Or is it just to the southern portion period? Does successful, that whole entire thing needs to be added? Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair, the whole paragraph should be added.
Commissioner Lane, are you good with the friendly amendment?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Commissioner Tabor?
I am.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Walsh?
Just one quick one for Mr. Wakeling. What's the rationale behind these really broad quota ranges?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Walsh, oftentimes some species can respond incredibly rapidly. And what we typically looking for the ability to respond within a real time. I don't know that if the commission was interested in truncating those, it probably still something we could address. We have the ability to come before the commission and ask for adjustments. But the thing that's challenging with antelope is we conduct our surveys in late July and the draw occurs in August. And so we have a very short window between when we actually survey the animals and we actually offer the opportunity. And so for those reasons, we usually try to be a little bit more liberal, especially when we're looking over a broad landscape, even separated into two separate northern portion and a southern portion. We're still talking about more than 10,000 square miles in both situations. So we can have pretty broad fluctuations.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Tabor?
Follow up, Mr. Wakeling, with regards to that response. So as you indicated in all of these species, the department was proposing tighter quota ranges. Were there any tighter quota ranges proposed for either Region 7 or antelope in general in the package that you put forth?
Primarily, most of the adjustments were within Region 4. There's I believe a few within, let me find that page. Most of those adjustments were within Region 4. We did have a few changes to ranges in Region 3. And then the rest of them largely addressed doe licenses and their availability.
Okay. Yeah, because I think the concern is with that wide of the range, and I'm sure this is what Commissioner Walsh was thinking, is it creates a too high of a level of uncertainty as to what was in fact approved by the commission and then what gets put out into the public. And I think we've had examples of that in the past. And so having a little more precision or tightness to it, do you have a sense for what that would be like you do on some of the other species where, given that 5 or 10% range instead of the broadness of what it is here?
So excellent question, Madam Chair, Commissioner. Tabor. The challenge that we have with this is we've not separated it before, and so we're playing with a little bit of uncertainty. I think it's certainly possible for us to come back and tighten this up in the future, but for going into it the first year, we don't know what harvest is going to be like this first year going into it. And what we'd like is to have the flexibility to be able to adjust next year. That's our rationale for requesting this. But it's certainly, I mean, if the commission chooses to truncate that, we could certainly do so.
And one last follow-up.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, Mr. Wakeling, so if I remember the process correctly, we will have one more look at this in June after the counts. I think the June meeting usually entertains any adjustments just prior. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Vice Chair Tabor, not for antelope.
Antelope, okay. All right.
That's for some of the other species. We have that ability.
Yeah.
But because we don't survey these animals until July, we're unable to provide any additional information at that point.
Okay. Further questions? Commissioner Burrows?
Can you explain so we have this really, I don't antelope hunt over there, so I don't really understand this large quota for either sex, and then this just little tiny quota for a doe fawn, 60 in the north and 80 in the south. So we're trying to increase some doe harvest in that area just by a minuscule amount. It just seems like it's such a small, it just seems strange to me. We have 3,000 tags out there that are either sex, so you can shoot either one. And then we just offer this minuscule amount of doe fawn tags.
Again, an excellent question, Commissioner Burrows, Madam Chair. So in instances with doe fawn licenses, when we establish the second opportunity, we usually have a fairly low threshold and a fairly high threshold. So with a low threshold, 50 animals, for instance, probably pretty close to the bottom of the quota range, it has essentially it's an inconsequential effect on the biology of the animal across such a large area. But we don't include zero within that quota range because it's the commission's authority to establish the season or not. It's not within the department's. And so what we try to do is have a very low threshold that we bring it to in the years that we don't have high numbers. But in the instance where we have, perhaps this year we're going into a fairly mild winter so far, knock on wood. And then you come out the other side. If you have really good forage conditions, we could have a fairly substantial eruption. And in those cases, what we're looking for is the opportunity to respond to those population eruptions, especially where it focuses around game damage. And so those adjustments will be made as we get into that late summer timeframe. But again, this is the numbers that we're requesting. This is our rationale and understanding of why we want to do that. If the commission chooses to truncate that, we're certainly able to work within the parameters that the commission provides us.
So I guess the best way to characterize this is just a management tool that we keep in place to just a placeholder for management if we see the need to harvest a handful more antelope in an area.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Burrows, I think that's a fair way to characterize it.
Madam Chair, I think the amendment as it stands right now, I obviously second support, but I would really appreciate when we get to public comment that if there is concerns about this wide range or those that are informed, that you specifically comment and help the commission understand your feelings about that.
Any further questions? Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to comment on the antelope?
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, I was right. I thought we were still are we going to vote on the amendment first before we go out? Because I had some other questions before we go out for public
We
comment.
are, thank you. Yes. So do you have any questions on the amendment?
No.
Okay. So. Okay, all those in favor of Commissioner Lane's amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Commissioner Siebel.
And Madam Chair, just to clarify, that included the friendly amendment.
Yes, yes, including the friendly amendment. Okay, now, any questions on the motion as a whole?
Madam Chair, I had a question for Mr. Wakeling.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Brian, just a question in general, looking through the antelope regulations and some of the public comment. I had a question for you on LPT 900-20. That's the archery only, first and only choice. It covers multiple regions and or hunting districts in 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I noticed for the last couple of years that that's been pegged out at 5,600 tags. Relatively low probability. It's first and only. So these guys are picking archery and only archery. And but the quota range is 1 to 5,600. And the last couple of years, we've set the quota at 5,600. And I guess a question for you is why did the department choose not to either ask for a wider quota range on that or increase that number? We did see last year that last couple of years, I don't have the 23 stats in front of me. I apologize, but 22, there's more than 1,000 extra applicants for that. And I know a number of residents did not receive that. And I believe the same thing happened in 23. So I'm contemplating making an amendment today to increase the quota range for you all on that, since we've been at the very top end, low probability. This is really about hunter access to me and opportunity. But I wanted to get the department's perspective on that 900-20 tag and why there was no request to change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Siebel. I think I understand the question, but if I wind up answering the wrong one, please redirect me. If I understand correctly, it's is there an opportunity to increase those or change the overall quota? The quota hasn't been changed. And what we've been seeing with the 920 is that archers are becoming far more effective than they were historically. As we continue to, there's probably an opportunity in some instances to adjust upward. But what we've seen with all of our populations, especially those that occur throughout the western or eastern part of the state, is that we're seeing just like the deer populations, we've seen our pronghorn populations come out of the last year in kind of a lower level. The recruitment hasn't been as good as we'd like to see it. Hard to say what it's going to do this year. Again, we're going into a fairly mild winter. If we've got good resources in the spring, we may see things increase, and we may look for an opportunity to make some adjustments there. But what we've seen typically is trying to basically allocate opportunity between rifle and archers, that as the 920, as archery hunters become more successful, and their hunt success has been increasing, what we see is we'll have to make adjustments to the rifle component in order to address that. And so at this point, we thought it was prudent just to leave it in its current situation.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
Mr. Wakeling, what is the estimate of success of the archery hunters for antelope?
My understanding is that it's currently running right around 14%. So it had historically been substantially lower than that, about half of it, but it's been increasing.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
And I guess this used to be an unlimited license. I understand that. And again, this is, from my perspective, is about opportunity. And with 5,600 tags, 14%, just rough math, you're talking 800 antelope harvested out of multiple regions across the state. And I guess would there be